Hey, this is Neil with Catalyst Machine Works. It is 6:14 in the morning here in Spring, Texas. I've got a coffee and I have been straight tinkering around with this 6-inch version of the Smooth Operator for a number of days, and I finally got the design complete. So we're going to go ahead and get some of these cut and start flying it and crashing it and beating the crap out of it, and we'll see how it goes, and then redesign as needed, and then go ahead and get a production run cut for you guys out there in FPV land. So what you have on your screen here is a comparison of the 5-inch to the 6-inch Smooth Operator. We've had a ton of requests for this thing, so I wanted to go ahead and get this out for you guys, and I'm pretty excited about this one myself. I think with HD video, you know, a lot of people like a smooth look to the footage, and so the bigger prop machines just inherently fly a bit smoother. They're not quite as agile. They don't move quite as quickly through the air, and for some people with flight footage, that can be advantageous. So let me get into some of the details of the previous version. The size of that machine from prop to prop here in a diagonal was 225 millimeter. I've increased the 6-inch version over to 260. All right. Now I could have gone with somewhere around 250, which is for years has been pretty common with the 6-inch class of drone, but I wanted to make sure and give some extra distance from the ends of the rear props to the location of the battery. On the 5-inch version, I have to admit that while it's not a problem because of the retention system of the battery and the battery straps, the prop ends are a bit close to the battery, right? And so this one, you've got plenty of room between the props and the battery, in my opinion. So that's why I went ahead and increased the thing up to 260 millimeters. So there's that. Now, essentially what I've done here is try to keep as many parts common between the two craft as possible. And I know that maybe you guys don't really care about that, but from a manufacturing standpoint, that is really important. We don't want to have every single part on the new machine being different. It becomes a logistical nightmare. So obviously things like the braces front and rear had to change, the arms had to change, and some other various components had to change. And so we did that. Now, if you compare the parts that are going to be heavily loaded, like the arms, for instance. So the arms have increased their size. You can just look at them and see the difference here. Okay. What's happened is the thickness of the arm has stayed the same. So they're both 5 millimeter thick, top to bottom. But the new arms on the 6-inch have gotten wider. So the width has gone from 9 millimeter on the 5-inch over to 11 millimeter on the 6-inch. The rear brace has gotten beefier. Okay, so this is this distance here across the brace has increased by 2 millimeter, and now we have a taper running down the length of this thing. All right. Now the front brace obviously has gotten longer, and it has gotten a bit thicker. So it's the same. It's the same depth, but across this distance here, I've increased it by 1 millimeter, so it's got some more meat there to take some crashes and whatnot. All right, since I'm talking about the front of the craft, I want to point out something that you may have already noticed, is that this entire front section has extended out. Right? If you look at this plate and compare it to that plate, you can see that it looks the same, it's just been extended. And the reason for that is that I wanted to keep the location of the propellers at the same sort of orientation compared to the HD camera. So if I just kept all these components the same, moved the arms out, now you've got more propeller in view because you got a bigger prop and it's sitting at a farther distance forward. So what I do to compensate for that is I have moved this front section out. I think it is 8.8 millimeter. So this part here, this one, has extended out 8.8 millimeter. And what that does is obviously it keeps the FPV camera and the HD camera at the same orientation in reference to the prop, the tips of the prop. But then it also does another thing that's important you may not be considering, is that in a crash, okay, on the original, the 5-inch, this is a line here. It's a straight line. Oops. Well, it's not going to let me draw because SOLIDWORKS is being a turd right now. I don't know what the hell that's about. But this is a line that runs across here. And so when you hit, it tends to want to distribute the loading across the entire face, the entire front. If you had this portion sticking out or you had the arms sticking out, it's just going to have, that load running through these sections alone. It's better to distribute it across a larger section of material. And so that's what I've used that same method here. So I've had to extend this front section out to keep this all on the same plane. All right. So that is something that has changed. Now, another thing I did is here in the rear, in the ass end, right here, ooh, look at that ass, is that, sorry, I've had too much coffee, apparently, is that the way that the rear brace runs across is just sort of setting across the top here. And it's just sitting on top of this 3D printed part. Okay, and what I found through my crash testing is that for most crashes, that is just sufficient. Everything stays in place well, and there's typically not an issue there. Now, since we have started increasing the length of the arms and we've got greater loading on all of this, what I did is I've designed in a little keeper plate. This is a retention system that locates this brace in reference to the center section of the craft. And so we've got these little spacers here. These are little aluminum spacers that we like to use in all of our designs. You've got the screws and you've got this keeper plate. And so that just sort of, clamps this thing down so it is not moving in reference to the fuselage here. Alright, so another change that I'll point out relates to this extension, this moving the front section forward. In order to keep with the same HD camera mount that we use on the 5-inch, being able to just use the same thing on the 6-inch, I've had to extend or change the geometry of this TPU camera elbow, as we call it. So if you look at the original, here it is here. Ignore this stuff. These are supports, but this is what it looks like here. And if you compare it to the new one, here's the new one. So you can see it's the same principle. It's just this has been extended out here by 8.8 millimeter. So that's that. This actually uses the same. Let me go back here. This uses the same system here where we have an opening in the bottom of the part and then you have a nylon insert. We're using the same thing here. We had some issues with the first rendition of this part where it would actually tear it in half. The screw would go and tear this thing in half. The change that we made here where we insert this nylon piece completely stopped that. And now the part is basically bulletproof. You're not going to break it. So I guess in a nutshell, that is the major design elements for the new 6-inch version of the Smooth Operator. I'm going to cut a few of these. I'm going to go out and test it myself, and then team pilots are going to be testing this as well. And we're going to crash the hell out of it and beat the shit out of it and fly it around, see what happens, see what breaks, and redesign and tweak as necessary. And then we'll go ahead and do a production run. I've decided to do another pre-order for this, so you guys that are interested in it, please go ahead and pre-order. We're going to do a small batch. I've found that the 6-inch version of machines, they typically don't sell quite as well as the 5-inch version. And so I'm not going to go and purchase a whole ton of these on my first batch. I'm going to do a smaller batch. So if you want one, I highly suggest to go ahead and do a pre-order. And I'm going to get on this stuff as fast as I can so I can get it out to you guys as quickly as possible. If you have any questions about this new version of the Smooth Operator coming out soon, just email me at info@catalystmachineworks.com or support@catalystmachineworks.com, and we'll get that answered really quick.